All right, I am getting ready to finish up my Jane Austen July junk journal, and I'm trying not to bump this because I have this precariously balanced where the top of my little title label is going to go. It's just a label I made with a title of one of Jane Austen's books. I'm almost entirely certain I've read this book. I know I've read Emma. Interestingly enough, I actually don't think I've ever read Pride and Prejudice, which is the one that is the most popular, the one everybody can seem to name. I don't know. Anyhow, I've read a lot of books in my life. It is possible that I've read Sense and Sensibility. It seemed like a familiar plot line. I don't think I've seen a movie, so anyhow. It just a fit. Of all of her titles, I just liked the title Sense and Sensibility also for my little journal here. So it's just a label I created. And then I traced around the printed lines on it because I wouldn't want them too straight with just a gold paint marker thingy here. It has a fine tip. Oh no, it has an ultra fine tip, or that's what it says anyhow. It says it's ultra fine. I have sprayed it with some workable fixative because it was just from an inkjet printer. And as soon as I figure out where I had put that, I'm going to grunge it up a little bit. I used the brushed corduroy throughout everything in here, so just that one ink is in here where there's inking. That's the one that's there. Now the workable fixative isn't on here just for the inking. I could do that on inkjet or on an inkjet printed paper because it's not like I was soaking it. It's also because I am going to use some matte varnish to coat it. I'll talk about this in a minute. Like I said, I don't want to move this right now. I'm going to finish attaching this and then kind of go over my little journal here. Give a little overview of what it is all put together, what it's put together as, how I put together, kind of what sort of happened as it was going along. I was just excited to finish it before the end of the month. I mean, it's not like a lot before the end of the month, but it is before the end of the month at least. This was some book or other that I had. Two book covers. I don't think it had a spine in it. I just grabbed up some chipboard and made my own spine. I made my own book cover and spine tape cover thingy there. I have double-sided tape on the back of this because I didn't want to put too much glue, but I'll just kind of finish it off with just some simple PVA. There we go. Gonna hope for the best. Hope it'll stick and get it up there. There we go. I will let that glue dry up while I kind of give you the little rundown of this Jane Austen July journal. Little booklet, or a little book, little junk journal-y thing. It's a 1.5-inch wide spine, and it is about 4.5 inches wide and 7 3/4 inches tall. So it's not like a huge book. I made this cover, or I designed the cover. I mean, granted, you can't really see a lot of design. You can see kind of some pattern on here. But what I did, because I really wanted to create something old and aged looking, and so what I did is used This is like the fabric for doing cross stitch that I can never pronounce, so I'm not going to try. It was this stuff right here. So it's not a canvas because it has that pattern texture, you know, for cross stitch. So it has all your weave. That's weave. That was it. It has that weave pattern on it. Okay, so you can kind of see it through here. And then I printed my design out on an iron-on t-shirt transfer, and then I ironed it onto my fabric, which the iron-on transfer is the main reason my book is this size. I think if I wasn't going to do my cover that way, I probably would have made a bigger one, but t-shirt transfers, you know, were 8.5 by 11, so I had to make a cover and a spine thingy that would fit on that, because I printed it all out together, and then I separated the spine tape stuff so that I could re-layer it on the book cover and give it just like a little bit of a edge, like it was, you know, taped over. Okay, now all of the like worn out looking areas, it was either the I used Fabri-Tac when I glued it down to the cover underneath. So either the Fabri-Tac kind of like remelted, or some areas I don't think I had ironed on fully. I was kind of in a hurry when I was doing it. I was trying to get it done before I had a 2.5-year-old come try to help me iron, which probably would not have gone well. Just saying. Anyhow, so I was trying to get it ironed on before I was found out. But that being said, it did work in my favor, because when I saw areas kind of flaking up, that's when it gave me the idea to come in with sandpaper, and I sanded it down and I really roughed it up and peeled up places on purpose. And then I used the brushed corduroy ink all over the place, so it wouldn't be so clean looking. And then varnished, and I'm gonna have to re-varnish there. I have to re-ink there too. It's gonna drive me nuts. There's like this weird white spot hanging out. All right, so that's what I did. And then I varnished it. And when I first varnished this cover, it was really rough feeling. Like, it was kind of cool because old and rough, but it was annoying me. So I smoothed out that first layer of varnish and all the little bits of iron-on that were sticking up, and put a second layer on, and this is where my cover is now. I recorded the process of this. I just have to edit it. I just didn't know if I could do all of that before the end of the month. So this is just going to be like my little synopsis of it, but I'll try to get it up there. And then my inside liner, same thing. I created the graphic, played around with graphics, layered it up, whatever you want to call it. I printed it on iron-on transfer, or t-shirt transfer, and then I ironed it onto some rust-stained fabric I made, because I really, really loved the look of these like random rust spots just coming out of like nowhere on here. So that's what my inside liner is. Just graphic I created, iron-on transfers, and rust fabric. And the fabric actually has a very faint print on it because it's really thin. It was like an old bed sheet, I think. So it kind of has this double pattern on it. I don't know how well. There, you can kind of see the background pattern there. And then it came time for all my pages. Well, I shouldn't say that. I made all my cover, or I made my cover and got it ready, and I got this ready because I had to iron out. And then I went through papers and put my signatures together. I didn't like put it all together first and then try to put my signatures in. That would actually be something I would probably do, but I didn't this time. So, just my pages. I have Simple Stories, Simple Vintage, or Simply Vintage, or something like that. A paper pack. That's what all the printed cardstock is in here, is from a Simple Stories line. It was the paper pack that was in the July Treasury Kit Club scrapbooking kit stuff and things and whatnot. So that this was just cutoffs of prints I made that are pages in here, but I didn't want to just like put them away or throw them away, or I wanted to just use them up since they were already out. So I just made like a little booklet out of them right here. This just folds over, no closure, because I didn't want to. You could just like put a paper clip to hold it if you really wanted to. A pocket here. It actually wraps around. It is this whole piece, and then I just wrapped it around and hand stitched like a 3-hole pamphlet stitch along this edge for these. Okay, this is just like a, gray scale, black and white, whatever print I did, and lines I printed on just some plain paper. I don't think it's quite newsprint paper, but it's like the weird brown paper from elementary school. But this doesn't have the big thick blue lines on it, although that is in here too. Rub-ons from the same Simple Stories Simply Vintage line. That the rub-ons were also in that Treasury scrapbooking kit. I made my own like Rolodex sized cards and punched the holes down, and this is just like a tuck-in spot here. I went through places here and added stitching on my sewing machine. Like this has stitching around it. Stitching. The paper it's on, this is a page I created, which I kind of got to get these graphics all kind of organized now, and I'll put them up in my Etsy shop when I get them all organized, something like that. They're mostly organized because, well, I had to print them. Maybe I'll just probably make like a Jane Austen July or a Jane Austen pack kit. It would be a digital kit, something like that. Another one I created, and the thing is that my printables are sized for 8.5 by 11 letter size printing. They don't scale down evenly to this weird size I had to make, and I made them all like vertical, so they're kind of like all like half pages. I actually made them to go with each other. Like, let me see. Yeah, see, here's the other half of, nope, here is the other half of this. It's actually made like all together. I just added an aged background so that the edges could have something there. Here's that old elementary school paper I was talking about with the thick blue lines. That's in there. Partway through, I decided I needed a tab in each signature for some reason. I don't know the reason yet, but I have tabs randomly placed. They're not even evenly spaced, just random pages, one per signature. Old music that I had in my stash, printable, just a little flap that you can tuck behind, printable. Same thing here, just light printing for those school paper, school paper, tuck in spot, and that's the first signature. Each signature has 5 pages in it, so each signature together is, 10 pages. Printable. This is just decorative stitching that I added around this rub-on. This music sheet is the actual original page that I had put in, and it was real rough on this edge, so I kind of folded it over, stitched it down. This is actually part of the cover sheet from that Simple Stories paper pack, and I just used it to kind of cover things up in here and reinforce, because it is thinner and not the full cardstock. Sometimes my inking, I would use the brush. Sometimes for like some really dark lines and scruffiness, I would just swipe the pad across. More music. Well, the other half of that music sheet. Printable, little Jane Austen-y lady. That's why I have all my, I think all of the flowers I have in here that are on my printables are roses, because eventually somebody falls in love. Printable. Oh, that was right. Some of my printables I would print directly onto lighter pattern paper from that Simple Stories paper pack. If it was a lighter side of the pattern paper, I would print on that, because I have a printer that prints, or that feeds through 12 by 12 paper, up to 12 by 12 paper. So it worked out. Little Rolodex card I made. More cutoffs. But for this one, I just stitched them across the top. And I staggered them. They were already different sizes, and then I staggered them so they're kind of really uneven looking there. This paper was going to go someplace else, and then I undid that thing, and well, now here it is. And I just left the holes there just because it kind of adds a little bit more to it. Rub-ons, some of them, like this one, will go across, and it actually finishes on the other half of this. Random bits of music strips put in. I had some, this is like that piano roll paper. That's what all these little notchy things are, is where it would have gone through the piano to make the music. The cutoffs inked. This, I think, is, yeah, this is my like double tuck. There's a double tuck there. Decorative, just because this was a dark side of that pattern paper, so I just added a strip that could be written on. This just flips out. No real reason, it's just there to flip out. Little tuck spot. It's not a pocket, it's just a tuck. It's only stitched along the bottom. More cutoff pieces on this front side of this signature, and it's stitched under this edge, so when this flips over, this flips up, so it's this edge that is holding them on this side. And just once again, just another strip of something lighter, since it was a dark print on that pattern paper. A pocket. This one is like got about 1/8 of an inch or so space. I did make it so it had a little bit of room in it. I had this cut off, and this is just like that resume paper, and I just stuck it in here for no real reason. And then when I came through and inked it, and now it just looks like this weird patch on my paper. And it's kind of cool. And if I didn't know it was paper, it actually looks almost fabric-y, but it's not. I don't know. Weird. It was weird. Random stitching through rub-ons, and those rub-ons act like a resist, so I could take my ink pad or brush across them and it would just be like a resist. Both of these are printables, but this is one of my printables that I printed on the pattern paper. I don't know why, but I really love these yellow flowers. This little batch of tickets I cut out of one of the pattern papers and then did random stitching through it. And so they kind of look like they're all there, just hanging out. A very short little tuckety pocket thing with a thumb hole. This is another double upper corner tuck. See there, you can really see how that rub-on makes this a resist, even where the numbers aren't, just where that rub-on material is, and in general. So kind of gives a kind of cool effect there. This is just a flip over a pocket, and it just comes around on this edge, so it is stitched here for the flip, and then the pocket is just stitched on 3 sides. This is, or this little like ledger part was cut from one of the pattern papers, and then I stitched it and added just this little scrap of piano paper to the top. This this page I kind of had fun with. It's the center page in the 8th signature, but it was that piano, or it was music, and it had, you can see kind of how tore up it is. It has a hole here, but I left that hole just inked around it. This right here was a bunch of tearing in it. I have this strip of paper to reinforce it, but then I came through and stitched it up like it was sewn together. This edge was just gone. This chunk is gone. So I put this reinforcement strip down and then just, you know, sewed through and pretended that it wasn't gone. You know, you can see more tearing through up here. It is a very well aged paper, and it was kind of fun to put it back together, in a manner of speaking. But I really did just have to leave this little hole right here. I don't know why, but I had to leave that hole. And one more pocket. And that is my Jane Austen July junk journal. This is kind of hard to set down. I have a piece of acetate in here right now because my little kind of an Oxford spine going on in there is still drying, and I don't want to take it out too soon. So I stitched my signatures to my inside cover liner. It does go all the way across. Let me try to get between a couple of signatures here. There. My liner is just one piece that goes all the way across. It's backed. I have I cut it, if this was 1.5, I cut it like 3.25, 3.5 inches wide of just some craft stock to turn into kind of an Oxford spine in there, which is just basically a tube. Because my spine is so solid, it just helps give it more flexibility. I couldn't just glue my signature straight to something like this. It would make it very difficult to open. So that little tube in there, tube of craft stock, makes it, gives it a little bit of wiggle room. But I have acetate in there. One side of the tube is glued here, and then I have acetate in between so that it doesn't just turn into not a tube anymore. I have some homemade headbands on here because I came across them when I was looking for my papers and decided I wanted to add them. Jane Austen July. Amazingly enough, it is all put together, and it even came out mostly how I expected, more or less. I am just going to add varnish over this. It gives it a bit of protection. That workable fixative has had time to dry, so I won't have to worry about my varnish smearing my inkjet printer. Oh, I'm just gonna I forgot to say, I just printed it on like high resolution paper. The reason it was already kind of aged looking is because it was from a like label I created and then enlarged so that my title would fit on it. I do have labels in my Etsy shop though, so. And then I'm going to try to put together my Jane Austen junk journal stuff. Thank you for joining me here. I hope that you enjoyed this little Jane Austen junk journal. Jane Austen was kind of cool. The books are weird. I don't even know how to explain it. You will go forever reading this book and all of these things that happen. And then this is the one I remember most about Emma, or is Emma. And then the two people that Jane Austen decided were going to be the ones to fall in love. They fall in love, and then all of a sudden the book's just over. You spend a lot of time reading the plot and the storylines and waiting for everything to happen. It happens, and then it's like, okay, bye. I remember when I read that book in the class I took, and when I mentioned that to the instructor, she said that that was common of the era, is the books would be written, and then once they were done, there was no outro or anything. It was just okay, bye. It was the style of the time, I guess. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or week or night, and I will see you again in my next video.